Hello, and welcome to the recorded presentation for the 2025 Section 5310 Call for Projects Workshop. The purpose of this presentation is to help you understand the Section 5310 program, the federal requirements that govern it, and how the program is conducted in the Raleigh-Cary urbanized area. I'll introduce the 2025 Call for Projects, including information about funding, eligible recipients, and eligible projects, and then walk you through the sections of the grant application. We'll also go over reporting and documentation requirements for grant recipients and tell you about some available resources and tips for success. The grant application package was sent to a list of approximately 200 stakeholders and is available on the Go Raleigh website. As noted here, the Section 5310 program is a program under the Federal Transit Administration to provide capital and operating grants to assist nonprofit organizations, private operators, and public agencies providing coordinated transportation services that are planned, designed, and carried out to meet the needs of elderly persons and persons with disabilities. Funding for our area is allocated to the Raleigh-Cary urbanized area illustrated on this map. Section 5310 program funds apportioned to large urban areas are allocated using American Community Survey 5-year data based on each area's share of seniors, defined as persons age 65 and older, and people with disabilities. The program provides grant funds for capital and operating expenses. There are 3 different organizations that have a role in the Section 5310 program for our area. The first is the Federal Transit Administration, whose responsibilities include federal oversight, allocating 5310 program funds to groups in the Raleigh-Cary urbanized area, and reviewing and approving local 5310 program management plans. Go Raleigh is FTA's designated recipient in the Raleigh-Cary urbanized area. The agency's roles include preparing and adopting a 5310 program management plan, which was updated most recently in 2023, administering grant funding, and overseeing and monitoring the grants once they are awarded. The Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO, is the regional entity charged with approving the Section 5310 program management plan. CAMPO also reviews grant applications and makes funding recommendations. Grants will be reviewed by a technical scoring subcommittee and recommended for final approval by the CAMPO Executive Board. 5310 projects must fulfill needs outlined in the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan. The Section 5310 Program Management Plan was most recently updated in 2023. The 5310 program is outlined in Go Raleigh's Program Management Plan, including FTA requirements and project selection criteria. Throughout every grant cycle, the team identifies and records updates and process improvements for future PMP updates. Now we'll talk about who is eligible to apply for 5310 grant funding. FTA notes that eligible applicants may include nonprofit organizations, state or local governmental authorities, or operators of public transportation services, including private operators of public transportation services. In order to be considered for funding through a Section 5310 grant, the following high-level requirements must be met. The capital and/or operating expenses requested must support the provision of transportation services that meet the specific needs of seniors and/or individuals with disabilities. The project must meet a need or fill a service gap identified in the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan available on CAMPO's website. A link to the plan is also included in the grant application package as well as on the Go Raleigh website. The project sponsor must be able to match funds with dollars that are not federal transportation dollars. This might include local funding, federal dollars from a non-transportation agency like Housing and Human Urban Development or Health and Human Services, or even private funding that can be committed to the project. Finally, eligible projects must be located in or have an origin or destination in the Raleigh-Cary urbanized area shown in the map earlier in this presentation and included in the application package. There are 2 categories of eligible projects. The first is traditional capital projects. These types of projects must be awarded a minimum of 55% of the total grant funds that are awarded in a given cycle and include rolling stock or vehicle procurement, rehab or maintenance, equipment and technology, passenger facilities and amenities, specific types of mobility management and coordination activities, and contracted or purchased transportation services as you see listed here. We have deliberately placed the word capital in quotes because some of these may not be what someone might typically think of as capital items, but as outlined by FTA in this section, items such as specific mobility management activities and purchasing services that are operated by someone else are classified as capital items. Another item to note is that funding for major capital items such as buses and vans may be less likely for non-FTA grantees because of FTA requirements on how the vehicle is secured for these types of recipients. The second category is non-traditional projects. These projects can include other capital or operating expenses. Non-traditional projects may not be more than 45% of the total grant funds that are awarded in a given cycle. Examples are listed on this slide and include projects that seek to reduce barriers to transportation services and expand mobility options, some mobility management activities that are not addressed under the traditional category, projects that exceed ADA requirements, projects that improve access to fixed route services, and voucher and volunteer driver or taxi programs. In order for your application to be considered, a project requires matching funds from a non-federal transportation agency source. This could be local dollars or federal health and human services dollars, but could not be federal transit, rail, highway, or other federal transportation dollars. These matching funds must be identified during application and also available at the start of the project with their use noted in quarterly reports. This slide shows the breakdown and matches, which are 80% federal, 20% matching for capital expenses, 50-50 for operating expenses, and 85-15 for revenue vehicles that fulfill ADA requirements, as shown on the slide. Again, the word capital is in quotes, as it was on the previous slide, because it includes some expenses that would not typically be thought of as capital expenses. Also, as you can see, there's a slight boost in the federal share for ADA revenue vehicles. Funds are provided for a 2-year funding cycle. For most of the past cycles, total funding has ranged from $1.2 to $1.3 million, although in the most recent cycle, there was over $2 million available in funding and another $200,000 in COVID relief funds. This cycle, there are approximately $2.5 million in regular Section 5310 funds, with about $2 million available to applicants. Note that all disbursements under the new program cycle are dependent upon a successfully executed grant agreement with the FTA. Examples of projects that have received funding in the past include volunteer driver programs, travel training programs, agency purchases of paratransit vehicles, mobility management programs, and trip coordination programs. Subrecipients begin receiving funding October 1st at the beginning of the next federal fiscal year. Now we will walk through the application itself. The grant application package is available on Go Raleigh's 5310 website. Part 1 asks for general information on the applicant and the project. This section is very straightforward. In addition to general information on the project, there is information requested on the estimated trip cost and riders per weekday or weekend if that applies to your project. Part 2 is where your organization has the opportunity to provide a more detailed description of the project. This will include a description of how the project addresses a need from the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan with a page reference from the plan. A link to the plan is provided in the grant application package. This description must also explain how the project will improve transportation services for elderly and disabled persons in the area and how it fits within your organizational goals. Information is also requested on how the project will be implemented, coordinated, and marketed, as well as a timeline for the project. There are questions regarding monitoring of the project and the experience of your organization in implementing grants, including any past 5310 or similar grants. In general, the space provided is sufficient for description. You can go beyond the text box areas, but don't feel compelled to provide lengthy responses. Instead, focus on the essential key facts. Part 3 is the proposed project budget. This portion of the application should identify the total project funding for both the capital and operating portions of your proposed project. This section also provides information on local match funds, an itemized budget, and a certification for any lease requests. It's important to be very clear on this section. This year, we provided a budget template. We encourage applicants to use the template, which can be downloaded from Go Raleigh's Call for Project website. Depending on how your organization handles indirect costs, you may also need to complete Part 4. Indirect costs must be handled consistently throughout the life of the grant. The grant application includes a question about the method your organization will be using to allocate indirect costs. Applicants other than government and public agencies may need to provide documentation on direct and indirect costs based on the method your organization uses to account for indirect expenses. Applicants who use a de minimis indirect cost rate are required to complete and upload the modified total direct costs worksheet shown here, which is provided in the application packet. Applicants who have an established indirect cost rate approved by a federal agency must upload documentation of your approved indirect cost rate, indirect cost plan, or cost allocation plan. Some nonprofit organizations use a direct allocation method. These applicants do not need to upload direct and indirect cost documentation as part of the application process, but if awarded, there may be additional documentation requested to support the applied rates. If your organization does not claim reimbursement for indirect costs, no additional documentation is required. The call for projects opened on February 17th and closes on March 14th. Approximately 200 organizations were contacted via email announcement. Additional information for applicants, as well as this recorded presentation, is available on Go Raleigh's website. This slide outlines some key dates in the current grant cycle. As mentioned, the call for projects opened on February 17th and will close on March 14th. On February 19th, the Campo Executive Board was briefed about the Section 5310 program, application cycle deadlines, and public outreach activities and events. Following the close of the call for projects, members of the Campo Technical Scoring Subcommittee will be provided with submitted applications and scoring criteria. This group will then meet in April to determine funding recommendations for the program of projects. On May 1st, the Campo TCC will review the subcommittee's recommended program of projects and determine if these recommendations will appear before the Campo Executive Board on May 21st. The Campo Executive Board will approve the final program of projects on June 18th, and applicants will be notified of award status later that month. This concludes the grant workshop presentation. The remainder of the recording includes Q&A from the live session.
Hi, James. This is Tammy from Gold Triangle. How are you? And thank you for the presentation this morning.
Hey, quite welcome.
So I have a quick question, and you may have I jumped on a little late. So if I wanted to apply for this grant under travel training and under vehicles, do I have to do two separate applications or just one?
I believe you should be able to do just one application. Let's see, I forget which category travel training falls under, if that's capital or non-traditional, but you'd have to, in the budget, have them categorized to have the correct match percentage and have those funds. But I do believe you should be able to do that under one single application.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Janice. We have had applicants apply for 2 buckets of money. When I say 2 buckets of money, meaning the match percentages have been different, like either vehicles, which is the 85-15, as well as either 80-20, I'm sorry, which is your traditional capital. So yes, it is able to be done in one application. And as James mentioned, you would just need to budget accordingly using that budget worksheet to allocate the cost for each bucket of funding.
Thanks, Jen.
Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? So if we don't have any other questions, we can wrap up quite early today. Again, as I mentioned, the presentation will be recorded and uploaded to Go Raleigh's website. You can also email myself, Tierra, Prashant, or Janice with any questions, and we will do everything we can to assist.
James, before we wrap up, I do want to just make sure that as applicants are reviewing the application, to please just pay close attention to they are attachments to the application or appendices for documents required, as well as for your financial expectations. I just want to bring special attention to that so that you're aware, especially if you've never managed federal grants, so that you'll know what the requirements are, as well as use the resources within the packet to assist. And of course, as James mentioned, we will be able to assist with any further questions.
Hi, Janice. This is Gwendolyn Avery and James. Where do you find that 5310 application again? I'm sorry.
One moment, I will just pulling that up now so I can share in the chat.
Now, Gwen, an email notification went out, the application process, but you can also access it on the Go Raleigh website. And as James, I think he's going to try to share the link here. I, I want to say, most definitely, like Anita was probably included on that email notification.
And we will be taking down everybody's email address that attended today. There'll be another email notification that goes out shortly before the call closes. And so if you weren't on that first email notification, but you're attending here today, you will be included on that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. I thought that I had this ready, but I have it ready now. So in the chat is the link for Go Raleigh's website posting that has it has links to the PMP. I believe it has links to Campo's coordinated plan, as well as the online application, downloadable version of the packet, and the downloadable budget spreadsheet. Looks like we have a question in chat from Adam. Adam asks, I understand that the matching funds cannot come from federal sources. I was wondering if my organization is a vendor through Go Raleigh Access, would that count as federal funds? So quick, the match funds can come from federal sources. They cannot come from other federal transportation sources. So there are, just want that clarification, the first part, there are eligible federal funds for match, but they cannot be transportation related. If my organization is a vendor through Go Raleigh Access, would that count as federal funds? I'm not entirely sure. I believe the answer would be no. Because if you're a vendor through, yeah, go ahead, Janice.
No, I think I would agree with you that it would be no. In that case, they would not be considered federal funds. Now, of course, we could definitely look at that if need be, but if you're a vendor and the city is paying you for services, then that would not be federal funds.
And I believe if Go Raleigh Access were paying you for services, I don't believe those would be match funds regardless, but I think it would depend a little bit, but.
Adam, we may have to get back with you to clarify that with a little bit more information. I'm wondering if you may be one of our taxi vendors. Maybe that's the case. But yes, we can definitely get back with you with some follow up on that. I think that may be the best option to understand what type of vendor you are and what type of payment you're receiving. Is that okay, Adam?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Adam.
Yes, that's fine. No problem.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Going once, going twice. All right. Well, yeah, I'm happy to be with everyone this morning. Really excited about this current grant cycle and seeing what great applications we get coming in. Thanks for your time. And again, reach out to me or Prashant, Tiara, or Janice anytime with questions, and we will either answer them or find the resources that will answer them. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the presentation. All right. Have a great day. Oh, Tammy, do you have a question?
Oh, no.
I think we just
No question. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.